All right, it's 2 o'clock. So we'll go ahead and get started to be respectful of everybody's time. I'm sure we'll be gaining some more attendees as I finish my intro, but they'll catch up. Hi, I'm Emily Case. I'm the coordinator for special programs, and today you are participating in the second webinar in the Fall Financial Webinar Series. These training topics were selected in order to help child nutrition departments operate lean without cutting corners. All trainings in this series will be recorded, and the recording will be posted on the financial support webpage. There's not a certificate available for today's training. However, you can track participation in your district's training log if you wish to count it towards continuing education units. Today's training topics are related to forecasting basics. Forecasting is part art, part science, and is the concept of using past information to anticipate future demand. Forecasting can help reduce costs through inventory management and proper planning. In order to fully enjoy today's training, you'll need access to a few resources. I've added them to the chat, and I will add them again as soon as I finish so that you can get them ready to go. Right now is a great time to print or download them so you can immerse yourself in completing them when we get to that portion of the training. The activities that you'll need is activity 1, and this is a 2-page document. The front page is an unseasoned chicken strips product sheet, and the second page is some questions that are related to that chicken strip. The second activity is a practical activity to introduce the new USDA Foods Cost Analysis Worksheet. And to best participate in this activity, you'll need to download activity 2, as well as the zip file for the USDA Foods Cost Analysis Worksheet. And that can be found in the Forecasting Basics section on the Financial Support webpage. Kelly is also going to help navigate to that page and that zip file. But if you want to get ahead and go ahead and download that right now, I'm going to make sure you have the resources that you need to do that. All of our presenters today are professionals in what they do and are experts about functional forecasting, menu planning, and ordering. And I'm really excited to have them share this content for you all. They're all going to stay on at the end of this to answer your questions. So if something comes up, please add your questions to the Q&A box, just like you have practiced doing in our weekly calls. That is the best way to get that questions answered. If you add it to the chat, we may see it, but if you add it to the Q&A, we'll definitely see it. So I'm going to go ahead and post those links right now so you all can grab what you need to get started. And then I would like to introduce our first presenter today, and that is Alexa Carrier. Alexa, you're still on mute.
Got it. Sorry, again, technical difficulties. So once again, hello everyone. Really excited to be here with all of you. I first just want to say thanks for joining us. I know that you've probably all worked all day and that you're at the end of the day now. So it's really appreciative that you are taking that time to join us and actively participate and learn hopefully a whole lot from this session. So thank you so much. I'm going to introduce myself and my co-presenter. Okay. My name is Alexa Carrier. I'm a child nutrition program specialist and I work at ESC4, which is in the Houston area. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for about 19 years. My work experience, for many years, I worked in school nutrition or child nutrition for about 10 years. And then I was actually a professor at a university teaching. I tell you though, most of my work experience I loved when I was in child nutrition, so I'm happy to be back. My co-presenter is Kelly Waldron, and she is a chef and a program specialist with ESC 13 in the Austin area. She as well has 10 years of experience in child nutrition, along with 15 years of in the culinary field. I tell you, when we talked a lot about food, and I really enjoyed working with her on this project as well. Okay, so let's go through the acknowledgement statement. As you've probably seen before, that you understand and acknowledge that the training you're about to take does not cover the entire scope of the program. So as you know, you're still responsible for understanding all handbooks, manuals, alerts, any kind of notices and guidance. TDA and USDA share their information, and so you do need to make sure that you stay abreast of all of that information. If all else fails, you also can seek clarification or help from your local ESCs. They're always there to help you and to clarify any issues that you have. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a lot of things, and it's all centered around forecasting. So our course objectives today are to define forecasting for sure. We're going to identify stakeholders, those individuals or groups or topic areas that are really important to understanding how forecasting works and how it's going to impact your program. We're going to talk about factors that affect forecasting. So what things can you do that would impact your ability to forecast? Kelly's going to talk about some tools that are needed so that you can get accurate forecasting. And then also we're going to recap of the procurement timeline. So how does forecasting impact procurement? And she's going to cover USDA foods and several topics in regards to looking at your entitlement and how to best use it in forecasting. Right now, if you would, I want you to, poll number 1 is going to come up. I think, yes. I really would like to just know who's out there. You know, I'm looking at a screen and I don't know who you are or what title or what you do at your CE. You may or may not find your title here. If not, you can put other and then maybe put it into the chat what your role is. Just take a few minutes, well, really like a minute, just to complete this poll, and then we'll look at the results to see who's out there. Okay, I don't know if it's been a minute. Can we see the results? Okay, great. Okay, so we have a good variety, which is always good. As you know, 2 heads are better than 1 always. And so we have a lot of different perspectives. It also helps us get new ideas and understand how to do things better and just to improve ourselves. So we have a lot. I noticed in the chat, a couple of people that said hello that I haven't seen in a long time. And those of you that are just our coordinators, are just specialists, assistant directors, all kinds of different titles out there. So I'm going to close this. A couple of things to remember as we go through this part of it. Most of my activities are either going to be just time where you're writing some information down, or you'll notice that you'll see some yellow blocks at the bottom that are there for chat. So I'll ask you to be chatting. I really would like you to be actively participating because this is our time to learn from each other and to get really good ideas. With everything that y'all had to overcome, I know there must be even more ideas as far as how to forecast and get ready for your next adventure that's coming. So we're going to start. More people coming on. Okay, so what I want you to do first is just to answer this question on your own. I'm going to give just a few minutes, about 2 minutes. I'm going to play some music. I want you to write down what are the steps that you use in your forecasting process. If you don't forecast at all at this point, it's okay. no big deal. I'm glad you're here so we can help you. But if you can think about what you do to help you then determine what goes into your menu, how do you allocate USDA entitlement, all of those kind of things, I'd like you to kind of jot those down. Once you've jotted them down, please start putting them into the chat so I can review them, and then we'll just bring up some ideas before we begin really what we're going to talk about with forecasting. So take just a few minutes if you would. Hey, so y'all had some great ideas. So I'm glad to see. I'm just going to share. Y'all can all see them in your chat. I do want to remind y'all, I noticed right now that y'all have been chatting to all panelists. If you could go ahead and chat to, it'll say attendees and panelists. So then everybody can see it. Right now, I think the only people that can see it is those of us that are running the Zoom. So I'm going to read a couple of them from the future on. Try to choose that other application, please. So y'all said kid favorites, past history, production records, contacting Labatt to see how many cases are needed each month. Checking past rates and trends, menu planning, all kinds of wonderful things. A lot of these we're going to touch on as we go forward as well. So very good. Okay, so in general, what is forecasting? Okay, so that's the big thing here is forecasting is the process of analyzing current and historical data to determine future trends. In a nutshell, it's looking at what you've been doing so that you can then determine what's the best approach to go next. It helps you look at your menu items, what's moving forward, what are the trends going forward, so that then you can use that data so that you can figure out the best way to move on with your commodity entitlement, your bid specs, anything like that. It's also predicting and estimating for the coming year. So again, when we're looking at that, we are making sure that we are estimating what goods we need. If you'll 1 second. Oh no, I'm so sorry, y'all. Go back. Your goods, predicting and estimating for the coming year, and assessing the needs for procurement. So your forecasting is connected to your entire process for procurement. So procurement of your food, supplies, anything like that, because you're going to be looking at what those menu items are, assessing the needs, and so then it brings you back to the forefront of what you need to do as far as looking at what the menu items are going to be, and how can you get the best bang for your buck? In other words, how are you going to use your commodity entitlement so that you can help your budget? I think the last session, they talked a lot about, well, it was all about food cost. And a portion of it, she talked about how we need to utilize and determine a pre-cost. And in order to look at your pre-cost of either a food cost per day, food cost per meal or tray, you always have to determine or look at that pre-cost, and that's coming from the forecasting. So there's no way for you to know those servings, the amount of servings per item, unless you did go back, unless you did look at your data to determine what you think it's going to be like. And so in order for you to really look at a food cost and know what you can spend, right, on all of these items, you've got to know what you're producing and what the kids are taking. So that brings us to this next part under forecasting, which is the procurement process. And so when we look at procurement, there's a couple of things that we know are connected to forecasting. The first thing is your creating requests for shipment of USDA foods. So we know that whenever you determine your USDA foods, you can determine what month and how much you're going to get. Well, you know, forecasting and knowing how many cases that you have all year long will help you determine how to split that up. You don't want to get all of your, I don't know, chicken tenders, 100 cases at the beginning of the year. You need to get them throughout so that you can use them throughout the entire year and you don't have to worry about storage and space. Your procurement process also involves bid specifications. So, you know, when you're looking at whether or not you have a process in place to forecast numbers, You may have a new item that you have forecasted because you have tested the item. Well, you need have that information, and it connects back to what you would put on a bid specification to get the best pricing, the numbers involved, because many times we get better pricing when we can attach the actual participation or how much you use. Other things under the procurement processes is determining the order delivery schedule, so when you get them, also your inventory levels. So later on, Kelly's going to talk about PAR levels and establishing PAR levels so that you don't overstock in your sites or in your warehouses and things like that, so that you know how to train your staff to procure the correct amount each kind of cycle, either through your cycle menu or each week that you're on, you're able to then maintain that appropriate inventory level. And the last part is maintaining that appropriate food cost. So again, we bring it back to the very beginning when you're looking at that menu, that cycle menu, and you're determining what you can and cannot serve, or what, if your students really liked a certain item, can I get that through a commodity item so that I can maybe have a better pricing on it per item on that food cost. So all of these things are connected. How forecasting, you may think of it initially as forecasting as just looking at what my kids were eating last year, but it's really so much more. It really helps you determine how to run your procurement and how to make sure that you are efficient at what you're doing. So here is the steps of procurement. And procurement, remember, is just simply the action of obtaining or procuring items. How do you get them? And that process that's involved. This kind of diagram is here so that you, it just kind of shows you where forecast fits, in other words. So as you can see at the very beginning, we're looking at a cycle menu. And that cycle menu may be what you established before, or maybe there's new items because you have tested them and you have those items. Well, you still need to forecast the volume. So you're looking at how much you need for that next year or the next 6 months or whatever that time frame is. Once you've done that and you're confident in those numbers, then you can either look at what you can allocate for your USDA foods. In other words, use those items, or you can also look at your creating new specifications in your bid. As you go around the circle there, you can see how you solicit, evaluate, and award and receive the product. But for sure, if you really want to be efficient and making sure that what you did allocate, right, and what you did use your monies towards are actually going to work in your menu. Because again, if you bring in items that don't work efficiently into your menu in the long run, then again, you're not getting that overall return. You want a big return on what you're doing. You've taken a lot of time to do it, possibly in forecasting. And so that's where you will eventually see how the forecasting impacts the overall process. Okay. Stakeholders. So if we look at stakeholders, who are these people or what are these? So it's who's involved and what is their role. Every one of these impacts, in other words, how you look at what you need to do as far as forecasting or your program. So number one is students. Student preference should drive all menu choices. So we know that, and as we go through, we'll talk about it some more, but how students dictate what you're doing. If you do not take them into consideration very seriously, then you're not going to get the participation you want. You're not going to get the return, in other words, on the investment, right? You've made these menus, and if they're not centered around the students, then you may not get that return as well as you wanted to. If they don't eat, right, then it becomes waste, and waste can be on a daily basis where somebody has produced, a school's produced 200 servings and they only served out 125 because they didn't really look back at forecasting to see what they should have made that day. So that's a waste, but it also can be what is sitting on your shelves. So if you brought all of these items in and you only make half of what is sitting on your shelves, then that's again a type of waste. So you have to consider how that menu reflects and as it comes in, so that you can definitely consider the students and what they want to eat. They've got to eat, right, in order for you to make your processes work. The other one here is sites. So when we talk about sites, we mean the capabilities or the constraints. So, and that's where we're talking about the building itself and the people that are in there. So you have to consider, again, when you're looking at how you're forecasting for the future, right, then you need to be looking at who, in other words, who is there. So your employees, first of all, do they have the skill? Have they been trained? Do they know what they're doing? If you're wanting them possibly to start a scratch item, do they know how to make that efficiently? It's all well and good to have a wonderful recipe, but if the product is not what we expect it to be, then that means that they may not be very interested in the item itself, and then that reimbursement doesn't happen. You're also looking though at the site, at the equipment and the site itself. So you need to make sure that you're looking at how many lunch times you may have. I remember last year going into several mega lunches, which was crazy, but we don't have mega lunches right now. Could we next year? Maybe it'll go back. Whether or not you have 4 lines or you have 12, right? Or 1, all of those things matter, because that's what's going to determine what's going to drive your menu and what are the capabilities there. Your business office, don't forget, district businesses offices typically are the ones that are a part of that annual budget and your food purchases. So we know that nobody has an unlimited budget right now, or really ever, but for sure now. And so making sure that you consider your budget, that business entity there, to make sure that you're developing cycle menu and forecasting based on that as well. And the last one is suppliers. So products purchased will determine the supply chain. And when we talk about this is how you get those items. So in other words, your suppliers are the ones that are delivering it to you. So you need to consider them, because they're the ones that are going to be involved in when they make the deliveries. Is it once a week, every day, every other day, whatever it is. Plus, if they make more deliveries, does that impact your overall cost? Do you have are you charged for those deliveries? All those things still are going to be a part of that development of your menu and what you're looking at. So when we look at forecasting, we're looking at data, but we also have to consider all of these things when we make those final decisions. Okay, so at the very beginning, I asked y'all to write the steps in forecasting. So really what that means, it's not like a step 1, 2, 3, 4, it's really what data do you need? What resources will you use? Why are they important? I'm gonna go through these briefly because we're gonna touch on some other ones in the next slides. If we look at a cycle menu, how many of y'all out there, raise your hand if you're using, or tell me in the chat if you're using a cycle menu. I'm hoping. Anybody? Hello? Okay, good. Yes. 5 week. A cycle menu can be any kind of cycle menu. It could be a 2 week, a 3 week, 4 week. Somebody has a 5 week here. So it just depends. And I know right now that with what you are dealing with COVID, what your menu looks like now is totally different than what it would have maybe looked like in the regular year. So I always want y'all to remember that, especially right now, I'm giving you tips and ideas that you're planning for the future. The problem is, I know that we may not know if you're still going to have to deal with some of these things next year. But so that is part of right now the consideration that you're going to make. But a cycle menu is critical. It does a couple of things. It's the first step in forecasting. You've got to at least have an idea. There are things that we do in advance for a cycle menu that help you determine really what your clients, meaning your students, want. We have food production records. I know y'all all use them because we have to, right? So your food production records are only as good as you fill them out, right? So making sure that they're accurate is really critical when we're looking at forecasting, because forecasting, many of y'all put at the very beginning that y'all use some type of record so that you can go back to previous information. So I want to remind y'all that food production records are really important for you to explain to your staff as well. It's only beneficial when they understand the connection. So if you're a menu planner, talking with that staff or all of your staff to let them know that the only way for you to make improvements, to do better, to provide and see the best way to handle your program is to look at those documents. They are the ones have the first hand in them, especially your managers and assistant managers at those sites. So production records for sure need to use those. Usage reports, some of y'all put that. One person put, contacting Labatt to get those usage reports. It could be a usage report though that's at your own CE. So if you're very large, you might be able to see kind of what's going out of a central warehouse to your individual sites when they put their orders in. It's important for you to know up front what actually went out. And then based on those production records, you see actually what the kids took. So you were able to see again what you planned versus what really went out. And that's the part of forecasting that helps you fine tune it so that you know what to do next on that menu planning. The fourth one there is inventory reports. So inventory is one of those that I remember as a district dietitian and a director that was so critical when we're looking at how we move forward, looking at our budget, things like that. It's very critical that you track and maintain inventory, whether or not you do it weekly, monthly, whatever your process is. But again, bringing it all the way back to your site level to make sure that they understand why, giving them the why so they understand why they're doing it, right? Other than just taking inventory. And then USDA foods availability. So what this means is just simply, what's available out there. If there are any new products or different products that may be similar to items that you're using, because there could be, so that you can use your commodity entitlement, your USDA foods entitlement far more effective. We know that money, that entitlement can really go a really long way when you're looking at food cost. So all of this in forecasting, when you're getting ready to develop that menu and looking at it all and analyzing, you've got to have all of these in place. If you've had one or two, then that's great. If you have none of those, these are things that you can start working on. Of course, again, you'll have food production records. But again, these are there to help you, and they can just be a part of the process throughout the year. So you don't have to do it at the last minute, in other words. So let's look at cycle menu. All of y'all, or a lot of y'all, seem to be doing that cycle menu, which is great. Why is a cycle menu important? So a lot of people, we know that it helps control costs. How many of you, I know y'all are using all different types of cycle menus. Are they different possibly than what you normally would do? You've had to make dramatic changes. And so typically controlling cost is really impactful with the cycle menu because you get used to, exactly what you have to order. Whether or not it's a 4-week cycle, you still have week 1 through week 4, and it keeps rotating, in other words. So it's very cost effective. It boosts participation. Sometimes people be like, what do you mean it boosts participation? But a cycle menu allows you to put the good things in that the kids like, maybe multiple times during the cycle. And it still allows for that variety. I don't know about y'all, but I remember enchilada Wednesdays like my whole life. That's what we did. Or pizza Fridays, all those kind of things. And so when you build the cycle menu, you have to consider those things so that you're still focusing on what the student wants, and maybe multiple times throughout that cycle, but it's big enough through that cycle that it allows for variety, because variety can sometimes, by the end of the year is what can be the most difficult. Right now, if y'all write in the chat, what do y'all do to overcome variety? Do y'all have different menu items every week for the 4-week cycle? Do you repeat anything? Anybody have any fan favorites? Especially now, have y'all found anything that has been helpful for the participation? Overcoming variety, anybody? Okay, so someone here put spring, winter, fall, each on a 4-week cycle. Interesting. So, definitely changing with the seasons as well can be helpful, or just different things. That's great. Very good. We repeat favorites twice through the 4-week cycle and do fall and spring cycle. Great. Seasonal. All of those are wonderful ideas. Very good. So, when you do the cycle menu and you do it appropriately, you add that variety, it does help. As we know, it improves efficiency. So I know, I have some recipes in my own recipe book that I can do really well and really fast, my one-pot wonders, because I do them all the time. Right? So that's the thought behind that cycle menu, is that when your staff, gets very efficient, they know what they're doing, they're confident, right? Then that efficiency is happening and you're confident that recipes are being produced effectively and they're getting really good quality as well. Reduces waste. So again, we talk about waste in many different facets, but when we look at it, if we can look back, on production record from the previous cycle and see if there was any discrepancy there. We had a big difference in what we prepared versus what they actually took in the end. That helps you the next time change those numbers, right? So that then you're able to not have as much waste possibly at the end of the day. Same thing goes when you're looking at the shelves and your storage, your freezer at those sites. If your ladies are able to look back and say, well, last time I ordered 5 cases and I still have 3 sitting there. If they're able to look at that, then you're putting less onto those shelves. Remember, I always looked at it myself as money on the shelves, and it's just sitting there, and it's a waste in a sense, because we want things to come in and then we want them to go out, right? Because if they go out, then that means that we're able to get that reimbursement. That means kids are eating, and that's the most important thing. Okay, and then the last thing, and assist in meeting regulations. We want to be compliant, for sure, right? So if your menu planner has made that menu, they know how many grains are in there and meats and everything else. When the red orange is going to be on the vegetable, then that means there's no guessing. If you already have it set up and it repeats, you can be confident. And your ladies and your gentlemen that are working in those kitchens can be confident that they're meeting all of those regulations throughout the week, and then week after week. It also allows them to be able to substitute more efficiently if they had to. So in other words, if we know that legumes are served typically on Tuesday, would there be another time to serve them later on in the week if we had an out on a delivery? So all of those things help in assisting with meeting those regulations. So when we develop a cycle menu, what do you think is the most important thing? Can anybody tell me in the chat? What do you think? Student acceptance. Everything, yes. So everything is important for sure, but definitely student input, right? We do have to consider many different things, but student input is really, really critical. So I put this kind of in quotes there, what they want versus what we think they want. I remember making several mistakes as a new district dietitian or menu planner, thinking that, oh, that's what they want, right? And it really wasn't. I didn't make all the considerations. I didn't ask enough students. I have 2 teenage girls, and every time I buy a shirt for them, they still don't like it. So my perception, right, what I perceive as something good, is not necessarily good. A customer's perception is your reality. So what do? We make sure that we know what their perception is. What are their preferences? So there's a lot of different ways to do that. So taste testing, some might say that this is not the time to do the taste testing. I kind of think it might be a good time. You might have less kids. They may be eating meals in the classroom. There may be opportunities. Any restaurant today has a QR code on the table. Why not put a QR code and have them scan it? Because you know they have their phones. Scan it and take a little survey if you have a new item or whatever you're doing. Just overall what they like, what they dislike. Even if it's not about what they're eating that day, you could just ask them, what would you like to see next year? You know, using those methods and doing taste testing on items, if you have it, are a really good method, which involves the student surveys, all those kind of things. Plate waste, you know, if you can observe plate waste right now because you have less kids in school, maybe just the methods in general are different, but you still should look at that plate waste. That can sometimes dictate especially if you have two campuses, two elementaries serving the same thing. One campus loves an item, the other campus doesn't. They have a lot of plate waste, you've noticed. Well, maybe looking back to find out why. Was the recipe is it not being completed correctly? You know, is the temperature not good? You know, all those kind of things could impact. And then food trends. I love food trends. I'm always looking up things just to see what people like. I'm amazed at what teenagers especially like, but which is very different than what I do. And that is the whole point of knowing your students, because you need to know that. I think some of what I just looked up the other day is they use the word hybrid a lot with a lot of different types of foods, limited edition flavors. Anything that has a dual flavor profile, like flavor pairing. And I know that some of these might not work in your environment, but even if you can market things as a new flavor pairing or something like that, you know, those are food trends that might pique their interest. Again, learning what they like, seeing what they want to do. Do any of y'all, and I can look, but do any of y'all have any just grand ideas or something that you think might be beneficial for somebody out there on their menu when we're looking at student input? Do y'all use any of these methods yourself? Maybe something different? Perception. Student dining committee. We're going to do a poll. I think poll 3. I think I forgot poll 2. If you'll answer here, so you can do this multiple choice here if you use any of these methods. If you're not doing any of it, that's okay too, right? I mean, it's not okay, but that's why we're here, because now you can take these ideas and move forward with them. I think one of the craziest things that we see today are all the different flavored potato chips, which we can't use in schools, but you see like cream gravy and biscuits, Lay's. I'm not sure who likes those, but I bet a lot of teenagers are buying those things just to try the flavor. So those are the kind of things that you can look at. Advisory groups, great, right? So again, you may have to do a modified type advisory group or social distance. You know, you might even survey kids at home just on general things with the menu, what they're looking for. You can gain that input as well. We'll give you a few more seconds here and see what I think I'm going over. Okay, do we have the results? All right, taste testing, student surveys, plate waste, food trends, other, and then not utilizing any kind of forecasting right now. Somebody here just put, we do a taste of the district where students spend an hour trying samples from about 12 vendors and providing feedback. I know you probably would have to do a sort of a modified version of that right now. But again, you probably could maybe figure it out, especially in a classroom setting. I don't know. Have any of y'all thought about doing any of these methods in more of a classroom setting or small groups? Are y'all going to try these things? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so after student input, a couple of more things to discuss before Kelly starts. Is site capabilities. So you've talked to your students and you think you might know what they like, and then you have to make sure that it's feasible to do it. So do you have storage available? Does the site have adequate dry and cold storage? You know, whether or not, I think the example I remember the most sometimes is where we would determine if we were using frozen vegetables versus canned. We may prefer the frozen, but did the site have the feasibility to hold all the frozen vegetables, or did we have to do some that are canned? So making sure that when you're looking at that final cycle menu and seeing what you're going to do, storage availability, your staff capabilities again, does the site have enough staff and adequate training? So, you know, their skill set. If you haven't trained them, you train and train and you train again, so that they get that confidence, so that they can again be prepared for those menu items. Student population. So we talked about student preference, but also what you need to remember here when you're looking at the site capabilities is the number and type of students. So this is when you consider your principals, other staff at the campus. And what I mean by that is, you know, are you going to have to serve the kids in a certain amount of time? Do they want you to open up all your lines versus half the lines? That's one of the things I hear over and over again from our CEs, is that they're frustrated because they have less staff because of COVID, or they're dispersed helping with grab and go somewhere else. And so they don't have the staff to open all the lines, but the school staff wants them open. And so, you know, you need to make sure moving forward that you do consider, you know, what you're going to be doing in that school setting. Equipment availability. Do they have the equipment to prepare at those sites themselves? And everything is going to be cooked on time, whether or not you can batch cook, all of those kind of concepts. Do you expect any of these to impact your menu moving forward? Do you expect to have more of an impact next year for any of y'all? As far as your lines, your support from your school staff? You can keep commenting on there and I can be looking. Some of y'all writing, yes, it's going to impact. The last thing I just want to bring up is, you know, you've gone through this process of forecasting and you found items, you know that the kids will like them, you've considered the site capabilities, and you cannot forget your budget for sure. As we know right now, you know, your budget is very critical with what you've had to go through this past year. And so it's predetermined based on that revenue that's coming in. So you're looking at your total reimbursement versus, and also not versus, your USDA food allocation. So, you know, when we go through this next part with Kelly, it's really important that you understand how to look at those USDA foods and that allocation so that you can try to draw down maybe that food costs down further per item. Remember that you do have, your reimbursement is federal dollars. I'll always remind you. So that means we do have constraints, but food, right, is one of those allowable expenses. Remember your a la carte sales. You need to make sure that what you use as far as the cost of those foods is covered by what you're selling. You cannot use the pool of federal reimbursement to overcome those costs of a la carte sales. They can be a revenue, but you do have to keep it separate. So all of these things come into play once you've developed, you've forecasted. Just make sure that you are covered within what you foresee as your budget's going to be. Again, the forecasting it's a large process, but if you can develop these processes throughout the year, they can really help you when it comes down to the wire, like this time of the year when you're trying to plan for the next. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly so she can enlighten us with a lot of information on USDA foods.
All right. Hello, everyone. Great to be here with you today. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So I'd just like to echo Alexa's sentiments. Thank you so much for all that you've been doing to support child nutrition programs through these really challenging times. And thank you for being here today, taking time out of your busy schedules. It's great to be here with you, and also really nice to see some familiar faces out there in the panel. So we are going to focus on USDA foods in the next section. So Alexa did a fantastic job of laying the groundwork for us as it comes to forecasting. And now we're going to kind of zero in on USDA foods specifically. And with where we are now, we're in November and we're looking ahead to school year 21-22 already. So we know that our surveys for USDA foods are going to open in January. And so we want to do what we can now to get ready for that. And what that means is looking at our cycle menu. So I was kind of looking at the chat during Alexa's presentation. It looks like the majority of folks out there have a cycle menu and are utilizing it, which is fantastic. So now's the time to take a look at those cycle menus and decide if there's any changes that you'd like to make. Again, according to student preferences, trends, things like that you'd like to modify. But also take a hard look at those menus and see what items you can utilize your entitlement for, your USDA foods. What things can you source so that you can really maximize your budget? And so in order to do that, we need to know what our cost comparison is. So we need to conduct a cost comparison, looking at our entitlement items, our USDA foods, compared with what is available commercially. And we'll kind of touch on that a little bit in the next few slides. So just a quick review, the way that we calculate entitlement is we take the total lunches served from the previous school year from NSLP, and we multiply that by the commodity rate of assistance, which right now is 0.3619. And so for the example there, you see that for this particular CE, there's 250,601 total lunches served, and multiply that by the rate of assistance, and that CE is receiving $90,692 of entitlement for that year. And again, just a quick review that, it is up to each CE how they want to use that entitlement money. So you have your choice of regular USDA foods. A lot of folks will say brown box, or you could utilize it for processing, DoD Fresh, or farm to school, or any combination of those. It's entirely up to you. And what works for one CE might not work the best for another. So that's up to you to decide. So some considerations that we have when it comes to USDA foods. And Alexa mentioned, knowing what products are available. Sometimes we hear that, folks tend to just continue to order the same items that they've always ordered. Which is fine if that's what's working for you. But, I encourage you to take a look and see what is available, see if there's anything new that you want to try or incorporate into your menus. Forecasting is an ongoing process, and always kind of taking a look and seeing at what you can tweak to make it work best for you and your district is important. And just kind of, some background information about what's going on now with COVID-19. There's a lot of inventory that isn't getting utilized. So across the state, across the country, we're in general serving fewer meals than we did in a regular school year. And so there's inventory that's kind of backing up. And also we know that there's the potential there for some of the trucks to be canceled. And I think that the food distribution team mentioned that on one of the school calls recently. So we have to kind of be prepared for the unexpected, which I think everyone has gotten to be really good at this year. But just becoming familiar with those products and kind of, making your plan for what you intend to seek out. Alexa also spoke about being aware of, your delivery capabilities. So this comes into play, especially when you're thinking about your brown box and processed items. We have to consider meeting our delivery minimum so we can save on our delivery fees, which we'll refer to in a few minutes here. But thinking about how many USDA foods are on your menus or could be on your menus, and then can I bring in more volume of something so that I'm meeting those minimums? And then if you have the storage limitations, I know that sometimes freezer space can be a big hindrance. So think about potentially spreading the types of items that you're getting out across the different storage types. So maybe you get some brown box, some frozen processed, and some items that you keep in dry storage so that you're not getting an influx of too much that you can store for your facilities. Also for DoD Fresh, if you're not familiar with that program, it's wildly popular in Texas and it's becoming more and more popular each year. So what that is the Department of Defense. It's the fresh produce, and that is the highest quality produce. And it's all domestically grown or should be domestically grown. You want to make sure that that is what you're receiving. And so that's just another option for you to utilize your entitlement dollars is for those fresh items from DoD Fresh. And you order those through the Favors program. And that's something that you would opt into when the survey is open. And we already spoke about planning for those unexpected changes as best as we possibly can. Okay, so tools for tracking usage. Alexa shared quite a bit about our production records and how important they are. Of course, we know that they're essential for compliance, they're required. But it provides a really strong historical record of what and how much was prepared and how much maybe went to waste, how much wasn't served out. So this is important so that you can follow trends to see, across a few times through the cycle menu, is this a popular menu item or do we need to tweak our menu a little bit because this just really hasn't been moving? Without that data, you're kind of just guessing. And the same with planning for how many meals you're going to prepare. You need that historical data to make informed decisions. And that's why those food production records are so important. Also our point of sale counts. So if you have a point of sale system, a lot of times they include the feature for tracking specific food items. And so you can look to see, if you're looking for a particular trend across campuses, you're looking to see how maybe a new entree that you're trying out is doing, you can check out the point of sales counts to view that. Alexa also spoke about inventory. So keeping accurate inventory is really important. She mentioned that letting managers and the staff know the why behind it and how it all trickles down into your bottom line and how you're doing financially as a district, as a child nutrition program. And so that provides a record, of what has been used, and that drives your ordering. So just as your cycle menu is going to drive, what you're ordering, your inventory is going to drive what you're ordering as well, just so that you're meeting demand and not overstocking on items. Okay, so some things to consider. And I'm just curious if you guys could share in the chat, if you know off the top of your head, how to find your USDA Foods delivery and storage fees. So you can go ahead and type that in the chat. I'll give you a second. All right, fantastic. So it looks like a lot of you know how to get there, how to find what you're paying for delivery and storage fees, which is fantastic. For those of you, maybe we have some folks that are new to their position or new to USDA Foods. We'll take a minute to navigate over there and show you. And this was also, Emily put this in the chat at the very top when we first started. So if you'd like to find this page on your own, you can just follow that link as well. Okay. So here's a screenshot from Square Meals, which is the page that we're going to visit now. I'm going to navigate over there. I'm going to share this with you. Okay. So we're going to go to programs, and we're going to go to the food distribution program. Click on that. And then we go to TDA contracted warehouses. And that will pull up the map that we see. So here in Texas, we have 8 different delivery regions with 8 different contracted warehouses. And so within this map, you can kind of see that there are a few cities there, Austin, Dallas, Longview. These are called the ideal cities. And so this is really important to know, where you are in terms of the ideal delivery city. So if you're within a 100-mile radius of that ideal city, you have a 20-case delivery minimum for your USDA foods. If you're farther than 20-mile radius, then you have, if you're farther than 100-mile radius, you have a 40-case delivery minimum for your USDA foods. So it's important to kind of keep track of that and know. And in terms of the actual fees that you're paying, we can go down here. And so we are in Austin here, we're in region 8. So I can click on that. And I can see that I can check out my rates. So the reason I want to draw this to your attention is when I mentioned about the per case, the minimum delivery, that's per drop. So let's just say that you have an elementary, a middle, and a high school. So if you get your first drop of the month at the elementary school, and you also have drops at the middle school and high school, those count as subsequent drops, subsequent deliveries. And so that's where that 20 or 40 case minimum would apply. So sometimes we hear that, I just don't have the storage capacity to handle 20 cases at a time or 40 cases at a time. There's no way. But do know that even if you're only ordering 10 cases, let's say, you're still going to be charged for that case minimum for the delivery fee. So it really makes a difference. It's really important to your budget and to your bottom line in being really strategic about, how you schedule your deliveries. Even when you go in and start with your surveys, what you're looking at in terms of, do I have the capacity to store all of these frozen items, or do I need to kind of spread my entitlement out a little bit more into dry storage or refrigerated? So these fees, these are the per case fees that you see here for delivery. And they are negotiated for each individual warehouse. So if we pulled up region 6, for example, they're going to have different prices than we have here. At the bottom, you see the storage fees. So they differ in price in this region. So dry is cheaper than the cooler or frozen. Okay, and that is per case. And we're going to navigate back to our PowerPoint. And so, like I said, you're gonna look at square meals for your delivery fees, and those can be renegotiated every year. So you want to kind of stay on top of that if there's a change in fees. But when I mentioned the storage, that's where we need to visit TXUMPS and look at our weekly commodity bulletin. So this is something that at minimum you should be looking at weekly. And the reason is because this is where you see, what you've got. This is essentially part of your inventory. So this may not be on site, but it's still part of your inventory. So when we look at the free storage up here at the top, we see that these are the items that we're not paying storage fees for. So, we had that $1 per case for frozen. We're not paying that right now because it's still sitting in free storage. And you have free storage for 45 days after it's allocated. And you'll want to pay attention to your allocation date over here on the left-hand side. So once it's allocated, the clock starts ticking. And then you have 45 days to get it out of the free storage before you have to start paying. From there, it moves down to short-term storage. And you'll start paying the per case on that for the different storage types. From there, if it's in short term, longer than 180 days, it really shouldn't be. But if it is, then it gets moved down to long-term storage. And just a reminder too, the food distribution program is a performance-based program. And so TDA is tasked with monitoring usage and making sure that inventory gets turned over and that it's not sitting. Alexa referred to, looking at inventory as dollars, and that's true. Even though we're not paying out of pocket for these items, it's still dollars. So we need to make sure that what we have, what we've chosen on our surveys are things that we can utilize. So, best practice, try as much as you can not to have items end up in short-term storage. Try to get them in and get them on site as quickly as you can. Sometimes it is inevitable, especially over this past year. Items, with a drop in participation, it was inevitable that there was going to be some things in short-term storage. But as a general rule, just kind of make that a practice of checking what's there and then getting it into your inventory. Also to remember, now there's been, and those of you that have been in child nutrition for a while, you know that TX-UMPS has gotten better in terms of the food distribution program. Now you can see what's coming into the warehouse specifically for you and when it's expected. So that really helps you with planning. It's not just a guessing game anymore. You know when something is coming in and when to plan for it. So you want to check that out as well. And then also keep track of your entitlement. So it's not on this page, but at the very top there, you'll see your entitlement. You'll see that it fluctuates throughout the year. So you want to know that if you're sitting on some entitlement and you're halfway through the school year, check out ways that you can utilize it. We want to spend that down. Again, our entitlement doesn't roll over from year to year locally. So you want to make sure that you utilize that as best as you can. And then that being said, if you do realize that you've got some inventory there that you just can't use, let's just say that, I'm looking at this fine ground beef and I've got 30 cases, I'm paying storage on it now, and I already have a ton in my own warehouse. I know there's just no way that I'm going to utilize that. So I would reach out to TDA, the commodity ops team, let them know, hey, I'm not going to be able to utilize this. They will find a home for it. So they would rather that inventory gets utilized than for it to go to waste and potentially spoil. Sometimes you'll see things, you'll get communication that says that there's bonus items or surplus items available. And even if you don't have any entitlement left to go grab those surplus items, if they're things that you can use, again, communicate with TDA, reach out to them, let them know, hey, I don't have any entitlement, but these are things that I could use. And I'm interested in, 20 cases of these canned pinto beans, for instance. And they'll do their very best to get those to you if you can utilize them. So just open lines of communication. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about PAR levels. And PAR stands for periodic automatic replacement. So all that means is it's the amount of product that's needed to fulfill a menu requirement for one ordering period, plus a little bit of safety stock there, a little bit of a buffer. So what the PAR levels do is give you a little bit of freedom, give your managers a little bit of freedom, that they know there's no guesswork there. They aren't over ordering because they're afraid of running out, and they're not under ordering and running out of food on the line. They've got that perfect PAR level, that buffer zone. And so that gives a definite peace of mind there. Again, we don't want to be sitting on too much inventory. Excess inventory sitting in our storage is not good. We're going to go through an activity for practicing setting a PAR level, but we do know that, PAR levels can vary based on different circumstances. How often you get deliveries, maybe your vendor minimums. If you've got a school closure or vacation coming up, that's going to affect your PARs as well. So this was posted in the chat at the beginning, and I'm just going to check the chat real quick here. And I will get back to these questions for sure. I see there's a few of them, and I'll respond to them after we kind of get through everything here. So the link to the activities was in the very beginning of the chat that Emily posted before we got started. So if you'd like to pull those down, or if you have your browser open, you can just pop those open. Okay, so the first set is the chicken strips with the unseasoned chicken strips. And we see the USDA Foods information page there. And Emily just reposted that link in the chat if you didn't get it before. And so we need to pull some information from this in order to complete the activity. So we're looking at one case of chicken strips, and it's going to give us 320 portions from that case. And then the next page, as you kind of scroll down there, you'll see the actual worksheet, the activity. So you're going to be calculating, the number of servings that per case, and then how many cases are needed, and then ultimately what the PAR level should be set for that particular district. So I'm going to give you just a couple minutes, about 2.5 minutes or so, and you can complete this on your own, and then we'll come back and we'll review the answers. So even if you didn't finish, you'll have the answers and you can refer back to them in a second. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I have some really soothing, relaxing nature sounds for you. So I will put those on. So let's take a look at our activity here. Okay, so again, if you didn't have enough time to finish these, the answers will kind of go through them here. So given the information that was provided, we see that the school needed to make enough to feed 500 students 1 fajita each. So we're calculating how many servings does one case of the chicken strip provide. And we saw from the product information sheet that that was 320. And then how many cases will the school need to create 500 servings? So we're going to take that 500 divided by 320, and we get 1.6 cases. And of course, we know that we can't order part of a case, so we're going to order the full 2 cases, obviously. We'll go to the next one here. And are there going to be additional unused servings from the cases? Those 2 cases, yes. So there's 140 servings left over from that. So we had 640 minus 500, and that's 140. And then if the school serves chicken fajitas twice in a 4-week cycle, how many cases will they use during that 4-week cycle? They're going to use 3.2 cases exactly for that number of servings. But then, of course, we round that up to the 4 cases that we would actually be ordering. And then if they're going to serve that 4-week cycle 9 times in a school year, how many cases of chicken strips would they need? And so for that, we see that in order to get the exact amount, so the 9,000 servings that they need for that year, would require them to purchase 28.2 cases, right? But we're rounding that 3.2 cases up to 4 cases. And then we're multiplying that by the 9 times it's going to be served during the school year, and we get 36 cases. Okay? So of course, we don't necessarily want to order just the exact amount that we need because there's always unforeseen circumstances. We're not sure if we're going to need more. Maybe for some reason you have, an influx of students that all of a sudden decide to eat the chicken strips with you that day. So you want to have obviously more than just the exact amount of what you need. So now we're looking at what PAR level should the CE set for this item if they only get 1 delivery a month. And that should be 4 cases. And the reason, we go back and we look at to serve it, in that 4-week cycle with 1 delivery a month, they would need those 4 cases. And that still gives them the buffer of an extra 140 servings. So if they went up a little bit, they would still be okay and in the zone there. Okay, so just quickly in the chat, do you have PAR levels set for items in your districts? Just put a yes or no. Okay. Good. Okay, so it looks like kind of a mixture. Some folks are using PAR levels and others are not. It encourages a best practice again because it helps kind of take that guessing game out for your managers too. Like I said, it prevents the over ordering for that fear of running out, but also prevents running out and not having enough because you've got that buffer that you've set. So how do you determine your PAR levels? Well, that's an individual choice. Like we said, it could depend on how many deliveries you get in a given month or week. And also, your storage capacity, things like that. If you've got, closures coming up. So you're going to take a look at your cycle menu a few times through and kind of see where you're at in terms of service of that particular item, and then go from there and kind of set your PAR and walk through it just the same way we did. Okay. So, we, at the very beginning, we started talking about how, in order to make best use of our entitlement, we need to really take a look and analyze, is this the best use? Does this make sense compared to a commercial purchase? So TDA developed this tool. It's the USDA Foods Cost Analysis Worksheet, which is quite the mouthful, but it's a really great tool. Maybe some folks out there have been using something similar that they've developed on their own. If not, this is the first time you're seeing it. We're going to kind of give you a sample, a taste test today of how it works, but also provide you with some resources so that you know where to go and how to use this, how to put it to use for you. The timing of this is really great because, like we said, now is the time when we're starting to plan for next school year. We're really getting ready for our surveys and kind of planning out what's going to happen. So now's the time to sit down and really take a look at, what makes sense financially. So we're going to navigate to Square Meals where this spreadsheet lives. But first, I did want to show you these data checklists, document checklists. So when you go to Square Meals and you pull down this file, it'll give you a zip file with these checklists as well. So there's one checklist for each type of commodity food item. So your brown box, processed, farm to school, and DoD fresh. And what this is this is just kind of a guideline to help you get started. If this is brand new to you and you look at the spreadsheet and you feel overwhelmed, thinking, I don't know what to do or how to complete this, this walks you through and lets you know what information you need to gather so that when you sit down to actually input the data into the spreadsheet, you're ready to go and it's easy. So again, this will come with the zip file when you download. So we're going to navigate over to Square Meals now. And again, this link was in the beginning chat session that Emily shared. Okay, so everyone should be seeing the Food and Nutrition Square Meals site now. And we're going to scroll down to the coronavirus updates, which everybody's very familiar with. Click on that. And we're going to see over here on the left-hand side, financial resources. So these are the links to the webinar series that you're currently participating in. So there's 2 more coming up here over the next couple of weeks. But also, if you weren't able to catch any of the webinars, this is where they live. So the one from last week here, there's the webinar, the slide deck that you can download. Some folks were asking about that earlier today. So all of that information will be here, along with activities that were referenced in that presentation. And so that will be true for all of the 4 topics there. So we're here on forecasting basics, and we've got some resources, and then we're going to go down, and here's our cost analysis worksheet. And so we would click on this, and it's going to pull up that zip file for us, and we can pull everything down and save it on our own desktop. So I'm going to navigate over to the spreadsheet now. So I have a live version of it. Just give me 1 second, sorry. So if you have already pulled down that spreadsheet, that is great. And then we're also going to be referencing the tool from the second activity. So I'm going to show you that one. Click through here. Sorry about that. So this is the USDA Foods Cost Analysis Practice Worksheet. So you're not actually going to have to be doing anything with this, but it's there, for your reference, so you can see when I'm filling stuff out that, it makes sense. And then Emily just posted that link again if you don't have it. So I'm going to go navigate over here to the spreadsheet. Okay. So what we're looking at here, and first, I guess to give you a little bit of information about resources to help too. On Square Meals, where we were before, where we pulled the spreadsheet down, there's a video, an instructional video. So if you get lost, you forget, that video is there. You can play it on your own and use that to kind of help guide you. Also, like I said, the data sheets, and then each one of these tabs has instructions. So for each type, so it's going to let you know exactly what needs to go in each column if you're not clear on that. So that's really helpful. Also, of course, your handy ESCs are there to help you as well. So if something's not making sense or you're just not quite getting it, please reach out. That's what we're here for, is to help in any way that we can. So they've actually input some examples up here at the top already, so you can refer to those. But also, we're going to walk through an example just so you can kind of get a concrete idea of how this works. The example that we're going to use is the applesauce unsweetened. So you'll notice that on the left-hand side, they already pre-filled all of the commodity brown box items, the regular USDA food. So that kind of saves you a little bit of data entry, which is fantastic. When you go over to processed, obviously that's all different, in every different part of the state. So that's something that you're going to have to put in on your own. The same with DoD Fresh and Farm to School. But this has already been put in for you. So we just picked one, and we're going to pretend that, we're taking a look and we're trying to decide if we're going to purchase applesauce on the commercial market or if we're going to go for using our commodity entitlement dollars for it. So let's compare the two. So this information that I am pulling comes from the sheet that you have in front of you. And all that information really is from the checklist. So, if this is the first time you're doing it, refer to the checklist, and that's where you can kind of get all this information that you'll need. So looking at the USDA foods first, we know from the fact sheet that there's 143 servings per case. And we know by going to TXMPS and looking at the surveys that each case has a value of $21.55. And for me, because I looked it up earlier, I know that my storage that my delivery is $4.42, and I'm going to do my best not to have to pay storage. So I'm not going to factor that in. And so now you see that I'm just completing the yellow fields, and I see in the gray fields here, it calculates my out-of-pocket per serving cost, and then how much I'm paying out of pocket for a case. So what you'll notice, obviously, is it's not calculating in that entitlement value because you're not paying out of pocket for it, right? Just calculating out of that $4.42. So we know where we're at per serving for this particular item for the applesauce. We're going to jump over here to compare with Labatt, and I'm going to type in my information. And this really is just for you, for your records. This isn't obviously going to affect any of the calculations on the sheet. But this is great to have, at your fingertips in case you want to refer back to it. 6, 10. Okay, and so I know that it's the same number of servings for this applesauce at Labatt, and I'm paying $32.01 for a case of applesauce commercially. And so when I click on another field, I see here that the commercial cost is $32.01. You'll notice there isn't a field for storage or delivery because that's already factored in by the distributor into the commercial cost per case price. And then we have our cost per serving is at 22 cents. It gives you your savings, your out-of-pocket cost per case. And then if you want to really dig down and, for forecasting, think about how many servings am I going to need for a school year? What am I looking at in terms of cost savings, cost comparison for a school year? So I'm just picking an arbitrary number. I'm going to serve 100,000 half-cup servings of applesauce next year. And I see that I'm going to need 700 cases. And by using commodity food, I'm going to save $19,293 out of pocket. So really good information to have, comparing. Does that necessarily mean that I'm 100% going to devote my money to the applesauce? Maybe not, but it's the data that you need to have so that you can make the best decisions for you, for your program. I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom and show you another kind of cool feature. So this is going to calculate your USDA foods out-of-pocket savings. So let's just say that I wanted to kind of know, let's say I'm kind of ballparking and I know how much entitlement I have, about 90,000. And I know that, I've typically gotten tuna and turkey roasts as well. So I'm going to go through that same process. And as I do that, it's going to add up my out-of-pocket savings for that USDA foods for all of them together. The grand total savings takes all of these from all 4 spreadsheets. So let's say you participate in processing and DoD Fresh and Farm to School, or any of the above. It will, combine all of those and let you know what your out-of-pocket savings is. So really a fantastic tool. So in the chat, if you could let me know if you are using something similar now for figuring out your value of your USDA foods to kind of help you plan, or if this is something brand new for you. So just type in use it or new, just out of curiosity. Okay, great. Fantastic. So it looks like a lot of you guys, this is brand new, and a few of you are using something similar, but this one looks more simple, so that's great. Fantastic. So if this is new to you, I'm really excited that this will be something that you can utilize. This, for those of you that are asking, of course, this is on Square Meals. We navigated over there earlier. Again, this is going to be posted along with all the other information from the presentation. So it's there and ready for you to use whenever you are interested. Okay, so we're going to shift gears just a little bit here. So, we spent a lot of time talking about forecasting and, all the important factors that go into it. And now, Alexa kind of ended her presentation talking about cycle menus and what you can do to, get feedback from students and make sure that you're preparing, meals that they actually want to eat. We're coming full circle. We talk about cycle menu and how important that is from a, functional standpoint. Now we're looking back at the food again. So we've talked about commodity food items and USDA foods and all the options we have available. But where do we go for change, for inspiration, for something new to try? So always, of course, your colleagues, folks that are doing the same thing as you across the state, across your area. It's great to reach out to them and see if they have any ideas. Child nutrition folks are so usually willing to share their ideas and what they've got. Also, I just wanted to put up a couple of recipe websites. This is not an exhaustive list. Curious to see if you guys have anywhere else you like to go. If you have a go-to site for where you get ideas for recipes to kind of switch up your menu, go ahead and put it in the chat to share it with everyone. Again, here's just a couple. So this is from the ICN, the Child Nutrition Recipe Box. It's great because they've got school and CACFP recipes. And they've got some new ones in there. So again, if you're just kind of looking for something different, or that you have to serve legumes, what's something else you can do with those legumes, right? How can you spice it up? Just a plug, of course, for Menu Module. So this is special here for us in Texas. I'm sure you all have heard about this. It's menu software that's free of charge to all the districts in Texas that participate in National School Lunch. But even if you have your own POS and you're happy with it, you're using it, you still have access to the recipes on Menu Module, free access. You can also scale them. So, let's just say that this serving for bold buffalo chicken tot bake, makes 150 servings and you need it scaled for 322. You can do that on this system without even having to use it as a point of sale or as your nutrition software, menu planning software. So if you're not sure how to get access to this, please reach out to your ESC. They would be happy to help you navigate. And if you'd like to know more and potentially use it for your menu software, they can help you with that as well. So the Child Nutrition Sharing site pulls recipes from state agencies that they've contributed. So just a couple here, of course, we're familiar with USDA standardized recipes. And we've got the Vermont recipes, which are pretty great. And just kind of a word of caution, you want to make sure that when you're pulling a new recipe, that you do a small batch first to test it out. You wouldn't want to start off with a brand new recipe and scale it up to 500 and cross your fingers and hope for the best. Start with a small batch, make sure that it turns out the way you expect it to, and then from there you can scale it up, just so that you're not wasting products. Oops. So this one here is from nutrition.org. There's a lot of different things there. This one in particular has a lot of great USDA Foods recipes in it, particularly with legumes. So a good one to check out. North Carolina also does a great job. They have their recipes broken out by components, and you can click on those and then you can pull down a zip file with the photo, the recipe, everything. And it's got the crediting on there for you as well. And so these resources I've got here, this will be on the slide deck, obviously, or you can take a screenshot if you're not familiar with any of these. And I'm just going to check the chat and see if anybody else has shared any resources. Okay. All right. So if you, like I said, if there's anything that you love, any place you go, please share. We're going to wrap up here just with a little bit of closure, coming full circle again. So tips for forecasting success, using a cycle menu. We know that that's important for so many different reasons, but for that forecasting, it's really going to help you hit that target and not just be, kind of a guessing game. And also for consistency, right? It's, the students know what to expect, your staff knows what to expect. It's really, really important. Those food production records, we never ever get tired of saying how important those are. Obviously from a compliance standpoint, but also from the forecasting side, that we can compile that information across the cycle menu, across the month, and across the year to help us with our projections for our bids and for our USDA foods. Making sure those food production records get reviewed, obviously, that they're completed daily and that they're correct. That's one of the training points that we spend a lot of time on is food production records because they're so important. They have such a huge impact. Okay, so also being aware of operational changes or challenges. We all know that the rug can get pulled out from underneath us overnight. Over this past year, we've all experienced that. So planning as best as you can, having an alternate plan, and knowing that, inevitably something's going to change. You may not get the USDA food that you had anticipated. There may be a shortage of some kind, a potato shortage, or a truck may have been canceled. So thinking about possibly having some commercial standbys that you can sub out in case you don't get that USDA food item. Maintaining your accurate usage reports, again, goes back into forecasting as a whole, and utilizing those usage reports to drive what you're going to order. Maintaining accurate inventory, and then documenting any anomalies. So, if you see on a production record a downward, something happened on a Friday, it's Pizza Friday. Usually the kids, go crazy for pizza. And you see that you were at half your normal participation on that Friday. And you're wondering, geez, do they hate this kind of pizza now? What's going on? Well, making sure there's documentation and asking managers to document, oh, there was a field trip today, we didn't know. And so we had planned for the normal number of servings, and that's why we had so much waste. So that you don't think it's a downward trend or the staff was over preparing, that kind of thing. So just in conclusion, forecasting is an ongoing process. It's not a once and done. I think that's become really clear over the past couple of hours here speaking. Investing your time up front ensures that you're going to have success at the end and makes your job easier ultimately. Allows for flexibility in planning and unusual situations. So gives you the best preparation you can possibly have to face, the unknown. It helps to inform your future choices and plans. So you're making decisions based on data, not just guessing. And of course, it aids in maintaining compliance with your program regulations. So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide here. I know that there were some questions in the chat, so I'm going to go back and answer those in the chat. Just out of respect for your time, I want to make sure that we give ample time to Doug Massey and his team from Klein ISD. Doug is the child nutrition director there, and they have some things that they'd like to share with you. So I'm going to just quickly show you this non-discrimination statement, and then I will let Doug take over from here.
All right, can y'all hear me okay? Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so I'm hoping you guys can see that. So my name is Doug Massey, and I am the Director of Food Service for Klein ISD. And we're going to have Kate Gillihan and Kelly Fair. Why am I echoing? All right, so Kate's our menu planner dietitian, and Kelly's our buyer, and she manages our commodities. So they're going to chime in after I finish. I'll be the shortest of the group. So I'm going to give you kind of a profile or what we kind of look like in Klein ISD. So we are located in Northwest Houston. We are a district of about 53,000 students. We have 50 campuses. We have elected to operate SSO for the entire 2020-21 school year. When we built our plan for the year, we were expecting to have 45% of our students on campus and 55% online. And that has actually kind of changed. We are now today, we're just finished the first grading period, and now we have 63% of our kids on campus, which of course we like. It makes it easier for us. We do a good meal if they're out on the campus. It's much easier on our program. So 63% are there. We will begin to offer dinners and snacks in the near future. So let's talk the numbers. What are we doing in Klein right now? So we began doing curbside meals in March, and we did about 1.1 million meals between then and August. We rebranded and relaunched what we're calling Klein to Go on the first day of school, which was September 8th. That is operating in 23 sites. We do operate just one day per week. We do 10 in the morning and 13 in the afternoon. The morning sites go from 7 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. and our afternoon sites from 4:30 to 6:30. So we do a full week worth of meals, basically 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches. But we have prepared and delivered so far since school started about 500,000 more meals. And what I really want to kind of tell you, and the challenges that Kate and Kelly will get into a little bit, is that's about 60,000 meals per day. And when a lot of districts are talking about declining participation, what we're doing on our Klein to Go operation is really helping our program. Right now, we're doing about 135% of what we were doing this time last year in breakfast, and we're doing about 86% of what we were doing in lunches. So it's less on lunches, more on breakfast as we're operating currently. The reason we get there a little bit is some of our marketing, and this will lead to how do we decide some of the menu things, and I know Kate and Kelly will talk a little bit about it. But we do parent surveys. We're going to ask them what items they want to see. We're going to talk about what times of the day they'd like to come see us. We keep them informed with our social media. And to the right over there, you see the picture of one of our banners that was at a school talking about that's what we were doing in the summer. But what I would mention, and I shared with some directors in our area yesterday actually, is one of our most effective things that we've done is what I call targeted communication. So we reach out every week to all the families of our online students, and we remind them that we're going to be serving on, and it's usually Tuesdays in our district, and we do this little mail merge thing where they get a great letter in their email telling them what time we're doing, the locations that we're going to be at, and the list of students. And really about 85% of the people that come to our weekly distribution of meal kits are going to have that letter. It could be on their phone, could be printed, whatever, and it really makes it efficient and fast. So that's kind of where we're at with Klein. I'll turn it over and let Kate start on her section.
All right, hi everyone. I am Kate Gillihan, and I am the menu planner for Klein ISD. So pretty much what I'm going to talk to you guys about is what I do as a menu planner, how we kind of get some student input, and then some of the challenges that we've experienced with COVID-19. So the main thing that I do as a menu planner is obviously plan the menu. The menu drives participation. You will hear that over and over again if you haven't heard that before. It is your main way to see, you know, that is why you are getting people to come eat with you. So when you plan the menu, you're going to want to do it by prioritizing. And I say prioritizing because all of these things are priority. And there are more than this, but of course, student preferences, like was mentioned before, if the kids don't want the food that you're serving, they're not going to come and eat with you. You want to think about health and nutrition. So obviously we want to give them foods that help nourish their bodies. We of course need to follow our USDA regulations. We definitely have to think about parent perception because if the parent doesn't think that the food is good, they think that all we're giving is junk, they're not going to put the money in the student's account or tell them, hey, you're going through the line. They're going to pack a lunch for them. Of course, you have to think about food costs, packaging, USDA foods, making sure you're using your processed commodities. You have to think about your storage space, you know, what kind of freezer space do I have? What kind of cooler space do I have? The available equipment, again, the staff capabilities. So you're not going to do homemade rolls if you don't have the equipment or the staff isn't able to make scratch recipes. And then I also added in here food allergens. So that's just something that we do have to think about with today. There's so many kids with different food allergies and you are making special menus for them. So you want to make sure you have items that are going to be able to be okay for kids that have multiple allergies, because you will have someone that has a gluten allergy, dairy allergy, egg allergy, soy allergy. And what are you going to feed them? You don't want to feed them the same thing every single day. So you do want to have a few items that are low in food allergens. Just as an example, this year we switched our chicken tender. So last year we had a chicken tender that didn't have dairy in it. And this year we switched to a new chicken tender. So I can't even give my kids with dairy allergies chicken tender when we have chicken nuggets on the menu. So just kind of like a little disappointing thing that you do want to think about whenever you're picking your foods. You also want to consider your student age range and the number of menus you're doing per age group. So for the age range, your kindergarten kids might not want the same foods that your high school kids want. Obviously, chicken nuggets works generally across the board, but maybe like a spicy Asian bowl is not going to work for your kindergarten kids, where your high school kids would be very excited about it. As far as the number of menus per age group, that's kind of like, just depends. Like in our high schools, we have maybe 6 to 8 menus normally in a normal year. And so our cycle is going to be a lot shorter, where our elementary kids only get the 1 menu. So their cycle is a 4-week cycle, so they can have a lot of different options. Okay. So as far as collecting student input, like I said before, the menu drives the participation. So you're going to definitely want to talk to your students and have your employees talk to your students. Your employees are the ones that are there every single day. So they form a relationship with the kids, and they can tell you, hey, the kids are getting mad every time we have sweet potato fries on the menu. So can we please find something different to put out there? So you definitely want to listen to your employees whenever they're telling you feedback from the students. You're going to want to find out, what do the kids like? What don't they like? And what do they want and why? I feel like the why is really important, especially with like middle school kids. They'll often ask for something that's unfeasible. They'll say they want filet mignon or they want lobster on the menu, and that's just really not realistic. That's not really what they want. So you ask them why, you kind of prod them, and they'll say, oh, we just want a variety, or we just want something different from what we normally have. And those are things that you can accommodate, not the actual ridiculous requests that they might have. So in years past, for student input, we've also done large taste tests. So we'll bring a large group of kids from different schools together, maybe 20 kids from 6 different schools all together, and make a big deal of it, test 30 different products, get their feedback for potential new items. We also do small taste tests throughout the year too. So maybe we're trying a new smoothie recipe and we'll pick 3 different schools to sample out little taste tests in the little 2-ounce cups and get some feedback from the students and let them know what the students think of that. Like Doug said, we also send out the surveys to parents and students to find out what they would like to change. Just recently with Klein to Go, we did that menu survey. We were on a 1-week cycle for Klein to Go, and we were having some feedback. When's the menu going to change? When can we get something different? So we sent out that survey, and now we have some ideas for what we can change for our Klein to Go to make our menu a little bit better. And then also you can just look at your reports, look at the popularity of the items. What are they actually buying? They might tell you when you talk to them that they love the corn dogs, but when you actually look at what they're purchasing on the corn dog day, they're not buying the corn dogs. So then you can ask them, what's going on? You say you like the corn dogs, but you're not buying them. And they tell you something like, oh, well, they're also paired with chicken nuggets and we just like chicken nuggets more. So you can then move corn dogs to a different day that's has less popular items or something like that. And you can also look at the popularity of the item compared to the cost. So if you have something that's not very popular, but it's very expensive, there's no reason to serve that to the kids. So you can pull that from your menu and replace it with something else. Okay, so as far as COVID-19's effect on the menu planner, lots of things have been changing with COVID. But one thing hasn't changed, that the menu still drives participation. And this is something that I like to remind my director when he mentions that we have served 1.6 million meals. So with COVID, we have totally rethought our menu and our packaging. Now we have students that are learning remotely. So we have to feed these kids, and we have never done this before. We also have kids that are eating with us on campus, and we have to package up the foods a little bit more, cover them just to keep them safe when they're coming through the lines, which is also a lot more packaging than we've had to do in the past. We are lucky in our district that we actually aren't taking food to the classrooms. We do have kids coming through the line and they're taking their food back to the classroom, but we aren't actually bringing it to the classrooms. So that's just though another packaging we have to think about whenever they're going back to the classroom. How can we minimize if they trip and fall or spill something? We want to make sure everything's covered up really well for them. We've also had lots of shortages, so shortages on foods, on paper products, and then of course staff members. That has really affected the menu. We might have planned for a certain food, and then we find out, oh, the manufacturer's not even making that food this year, so we have to go in a different direction. So like I said, when we're with the menu planning with COVID, we just have to still consider everything that I already talked about. We just also have to think about a few more things. So for our online kids, we're doing the 14 meals, the 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches on 1 day per week. So totally different than normal. We package all of our items ourselves. We do have a few that are IW, but most of them we're getting like our bulk chicken nugget and packaging it into a little baggie, a single serving. So we do have to think about that extra labor that's involved with that, and then the limited storage space that we have. For our on-campus kids, we did start our year with really limited menus. So like I said before, our high school kids are used to having like 6 or 8 lines that they can go to. We started the year with only 2. So they were very limited. We just wanted to like get some traction and kind of see how things worked out before we went all in. And so we have just been kind of adding little by little. If I could go back and redo this, I would probably not have limited the online kids as much, just because now every time I add something, it's met with a lot of resistance. I realize that they are limited on staff and time, and it's really difficult already. But that's just an additional challenge that we're dealing with right now. So considering all that extra packaging and storage space for our curbside pickup, we do try to do as much in bulk as we can. We just switched all our schools from carton milk to gallon milk. So that has been great for storage space. The gallons in their in their crates take up less space than the same amount of cartons in crates. It's been great for labor because our people aren't having to pack up 14 milks into a baggie. And then it's also been great for the families because the gallon of milk takes up less room in their refrigerators than all of the little cartons did. Anytime we can do a fruit in bulk, like a 1 pound container of strawberries, we've liked to do that in the past too. So the 1 pound container of strawberries has 5 1/2 cup servings in it. So you can spread that out throughout your menu. And that's super easy. They don't have to pack up anything. We also like to do like a whole apple because the size of apple that we purchase counts for a full cup of fruit. Same kind of thing with our bulk veggie or our veggies. We try to pack them in bulk. So if we have baby carrots, we'll put them on the menu twice, and then our people will just pack 2 servings into 1 bag so that it's just 1 less bag that they have to pack up. And then of course, whenever you do these kind of bulk things, you want to make sure that you put it on your menu, how much they're supposed to use for the menu that goes home. So if you put a 1 pound container of strawberries and you want them to use them in 1/2 cup servings, you have to make sure every time you have strawberries, you have 1/2 cup of strawberry on there so that the families know how much they're supposed to put. And that is all from me. So Kelly is up next.
Hello, my name is Kelly Fair, and I am currently the buyer and also a dietitian, but work with Kate a lot. And you'll see actually some of our stuff is repetitive. But just like Alexa said, she talked about kind of the ideal forecasting and what you need. But just like everything else, when COVID-19 hit, forecasting took on a new meaning. We were exploring territory we had never explored before. And what do we do? And it not affected just our school district, but the manufacturers, the distributor. I mean, really, it's everyone involved. So how did we get through that? First of all, really numbers. For our curbside, this is at the beginning. So if someone was just starting or interested, this might help them. For the curbside operations, the initial order when we did day 1, we took a guess and went for it. But after that, you're looking every week, you're running numbers. What'd you do last week? What are you doing? What'd you do the previous week? And you're really looking at those trends. I know Alexa mentioned trends. Are our numbers trending up? Are they trending down? Are they flat? Ours kept trending up. And of course, we're working on getting product in. And that was a big deal when we first started. One thing about the curbside operation is it's not offer versus serve. That's probably the only great thing in all of this is that the quantities for each item are basically the same. When you're doing your regular school menus, you got to figure out what percentage of kids are going to pick up maybe sweet potato fries or pick up this. When you do the curbside, if you had 5,000 meal kits you knew were going out, you had 5,000 servings of every single item. And that really helped in forecasting and doing some projections. It was a whole different way to think of things. We also need to look at the current market, where it was at the time, what's available and what's not. We communicated with our vendors continuously. Things were changing really every week. There's some kind of change in our program every single week. What we did at the very beginning was use up the inventory we had from the previous school year. It was right after spring break. Our distributor was stocked with product. They kept having orders come in, and we used what we could. We were like, what do you have, Kate? This is what we have. This is what's on what we're going to have to go with. And we had to do that for a couple weeks until we kind of got control of the situation. That bought us some time to get some items in. Like Kate said, we started with our Klein to Go just on a weekly cycle menu. We didn't try to complicate things. And when we did need to make a change, usually based on availability, we tried to just do it a little bit at a time. For those looking to do curbside, your forecasting is so far out. One curbside feeding is almost a 4-week process. We developed an ordering calendar specifically for our curbside operation, or our Klein to Go as we call it, that had to be separate from our regular on-campus operation because the ordering dates, the usage dates were totally different, and it was confusing to run both programs. So again, it's a 4-week process. The managers place the orders. We get them to the distributor. We receive them. We have time. Then we need to package. As Kate said, we're packaging, we're prepping, we're bagging. Almost all those things. Those IW items were not available. We learned, someone wanted to tell us a 6-week lead time. And it's like, we don't have 6 weeks. We need to feed our kids now. So we did end up, we're packaging and prepping most of our items. Then we're distributing 7 days, as you've heard, of breakfast and lunch. So that's another whole week out. So basically that's almost a 4-week process just to run one curbside week. I will repeat what Kate said, menu drives participation. And at first, inventory that was available drove the menu. We don't like it that way, but that's how it started. And there was no choice at that time. Only 1% milk was available. We went with it. Produce ended up being a good option because some of that was coming in, but we went to the whole fruits or vegetables because none of the manufacturers were producing. They didn't have the staff. A lot of plants were shut down. We couldn't get bagged carrots, bagged baby carrots or bagged apple slices. But whole apples were readily available. Oranges, carrots in bulk were available. We used, again, at first we used what was on hand, what we had available. Again, IW items were a premium and it just wasn't really feasible. The lead time was not feasible. What are some of our successes working with that? Using some of the fruits that count as 1 cup and have a longer shelf life. Whole apples and even grapefruit, they both meet 1 cup of fruit. They have a longer shelf life. When you're looking at food costs, not only are they normally lower in cost for a fruit serving than like a cup of peaches or a cup of pears, but they were also on DoD. We do participate in the DoD program, and actually that really helped us, helped our food costs tremendously as we are able to actually use all of our 2020 money by using the DoD with using the fresh fruits and vegetables through that, where we weren't able to use a lot of our processed commodities and some of our other monies that thank goodness they're rolling over, but we were able to utilize our DoD funds and that did help our food cost. I have a little bit about packaging. We talked about that and finding bags. I'm gonna go through that pretty quickly. We packaged ourselves and we try to use some of the similar items when we were first trying to figure out products. When we were coming back, we try to have chicken nuggets, which Kate mentioned as a favorite, both on the to-go menu and on campus. So we're not bringing in as many SKUs into the distributor. They were packed. They had inventory issues themselves as far as they were exploding with so much inventory. They couldn't bring anything new in. So we're trying to minimize items also from the distributor point, but also in our freezers at our schools. The main thing I really can't emphasize enough is the communication. Literally every day you have to reach out, not just to your salesperson, but you need to reach out to those manufacturers because they had to figure out what are they making, what are they not making, what's available, what's the lead time. We did want some prepackaged items. We asked, what is the lead time? We put it on the menu. I told Kate, hey, it's gonna be 5 weeks. So she forecasted it, put it on in 5 weeks. We placed an order to get some of those items. A lot of items have been minimized. There's also a can shortage or aluminum shortage. So many things that we wanted to serve, they're not available in the market. How do we incorporate USDA foods? Again, some of this already said about utilizing the DoD money. That is a great program. If you haven't participated in that, I highly recommend it. We are very fortunate here in the Houston area that our produce distributor is the same distributor as DoD. So we're able to combine products, really don't have to worry about minimums as much. And we get our stuff all together on the same day. Our processed commodities, one way to utilize those items, we do participate in a Choice Partners bid, and we were able to switch from some of our normal items from the manufacturers to some of the individual wrapped items Not a lot, but to try to still utilize our pounds into items that work for the Klein to go. Again, we process probably 70% of our commodity allotment. And so we're trying to always work down the inventory of that. Forecasting, our base forecast is our percentage students on campus. And we already know what we're curbside. We've been doing curbside for so long. We follow the trends every week. We have the numbers. That is really easy for me to forecast with the vendor, with the distributor. The percent of students we took, what percent of students are on campus, what percent of those normally eat with us, and that data really helps drive what we do. Every week, our distributor is Cisco Houston. What do you expect? What are you forecasting? I do that really every day with so many products, and I'm looking at the numbers. What are we doing? I'm looking at the data. Another way to use commodity USDA foods or commodity pounds, just like was mentioned earlier, is to ask. Ask the broker, ask the manufacturer, ask the state commodity contact. There is extra product out there, and a lot of times you don't know, you just need to ask. Just like if you don't have money, they mentioned, and there's bonus items or surplus items out there, the state just wants people to utilize the product. So a lot of times ask. Again, ask other school districts. We in the past have traded pounds. I needed this manufacturer cheese and they need some chicken. We would trade. Sometimes we just trade white and dark meat chicken with one of the manufacturers. So a lot of it is asking, doing the homework, communicating, and building the relationships to know and let the broker know we're almost out of chicken. Is there any out there? We're almost out of apples. If you hear any, we're interested. And the last thing I want to say is to utilize some of the commodity foods is on the curbside, especially your vegetables such as sweet potato fries. When it's offer versus serve on the serving line, we might do a small number of servings for that. When it's in your curbside bag, it's not offer versus serve. 100% of the students that you're doing will take those. So we just recently added that to help utilize those pounds. So overall, in conclusion, is communicate with the vendors, let them know what you need, what you're looking for. In return, ask them what they have, and then make it all work for your whole team. So that is all I have. Doug, do you have some other things you want to conclude? Here's some pictures that we've taken. Our team and our staff has been amazing this school year. These are all obviously curbside Klein to go, but we're so proud of the staff that we have, and they have just really rocked it. And they actually have a really good time on the curbside. It's a little more relaxed atmosphere. So these are some other pictures. Is there questions or?
Two questions.
Okay.
Do you have designated staff in Klein ISD to do marketing and data analysis, weekly emails to parents of online learners, surveys, etc.?
Okay, so I'll take that off. So we actually do have, but that person had a different role previously, and we worked to get a communications and marketing person that was actually approved July 1st, but the person was already doing a lot of that work ahead of time, and now has done, pictures you see, we're promoting our program. So yes, we do have someone that's doing that work now.
Is there a reason you've chosen to distribute curbside one time a week with 14 meals versus multiple days?
So what we found out in the summer, so from March through August, we were doing 2-day-a-week deliveries, Mondays and Thursdays. So we've always done multiple days at a time. And the parents actually like that from a convenience standpoint. So when we surveyed parents, as we designed the Klein to go, one of the things we asked was pickup times and locations. And really, it's more convenient for the parents. It's tougher on us to package up all of that stuff, a week's worth, but it's really convenient for the parents. And because we do it in the morning and again in the evening, they should be able to go before they go to work, or if they want to pick up after they're off of work, whichever is most convenient for them. Anything else? I don't know how you found those questions. They were in chat?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's always.
All right, TDA, you guys got anything else you need from any other questions that we missed?
No, I think if anybody has any questions that they've been holding for the Q&A box, now is a really good time to add them. But thank you to whomever that was in the background reading those questions to you. Those were the ones that were added into the chat. And Kelly also addressed some questions that were in the chat if you had asked them there. But if your question at this point hasn't been addressed yet, oh, I got one more. How do you keep your in-person students from picking up the to-go meals?
So,
The curb-
so we can't do it 100% because they could go to a different a campus, so to speak. But we target with all of our communications only the students that are online, and that's going down every week. So, you know, as we transition more and more back. So they should know. We do have signs. All of our social media also will tell them this is for our Klein Online or community-based people. That's what we kind of target.
Yeah, your marketing person has a really unique responsibility this year. That's great.
Yeah, it's not what we planned for sure. Yeah, he's earning his keep currently.
Great. Well, thank you all again. I love how much new information was shared. I thought, Klein, your team is doing a really amazing job thinking through some creative solutions. My favorite was thinking about shelf-stable produce items that could be used in a curbside manner. I love the example of using the sweet potato fries, just all around really ingenious solutions for a tricky moment. And hopefully we will be seeing things returning more to normal as the pandemic slows down. We hope. But in the meantime, everyone is still doing such an incredible job adjusting. And luckily we are able to adjust now. We have some steady flow of communication coming from USDA as opposed to the fire hose that was for a little while. So thank you all again for coming and joining us. This is a long presentation. We had a lot of people tuning in because this is such an important topic. Planning is really key in reducing expenses. We don't want to over purchase. We don't want to under purchase. We want to plan to purchase the proper amount. Does anyone have any last comments, either of any of the presenters? See silent faces. All right, well then, thank you again. We are closing us out a couple minutes past our scheduled end, and we still have quite a few people that stuck with us to the bitter end. This will be posted, the recording will be posted by the end of the week. You can download the slides with that posting. And if you have any other questions that you didn't want to put in the chat, you can send them to any of us at TDA directly. And we hope you sign up and participate in the next, there's actually going to be 2 more presentations and an encore third presentation about marketing that we'll be adding to the series soon. So thank you again, everybody who joined us.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Great job, guys.
Mm-hmm.